Hi everyone, and welcome to, well, a bit of a late video really. This should have been done really at the beginning of this year. It is basically a review of 2025, my camping adventures in 2025, which it had its highs and its lows. It had some exciting times to it really, but on the whole really enjoyed it. 2025 was the first year that I actually camped out. I think I said I'd never camped out. That is a bit of a lie. I did camp out when I was younger, but only in the back garden with, you know, a very basic tent, as it would have been back in the early 80s, I suppose. 80s, you know. I think I remember it just being a pyramid type tent with ground sheet that weren't even sewn into the side, and you know, so creepy crawlers could get in and also. But when you're young, I don't suppose you really matter about that. You don't really bother about that. But yeah, I did say to Mick it was part of a kind of a bucket list thing really. Just generally talking one of the days, and we just mentioned that one of the things I wanted to do was see the night sky in all its glory, with no light pollution, seeing all that, and that's what led us to eventually doing the camping. Mick had camped before many times, so he knew the ins and outs of it, and Kev, who came with us on a couple of those, couple of the trips last year, couple of the camps. Again, he's a seasoned camper, so yeah, we started actually. But the first one we did was at Farside Farm, which is right next door to Robin Hood's Bay, at the top of the cliffs. And probably, yeah, funnily enough, that was probably the worst camp that we had really. I say worst. I mean, the other bad one was Side in the Lake District, which I'll get to, but the thing that's, well, I'll go through the positives, so I'll go through the thing before I get on to the negative about this first camp. We had high hopes of a dark sky night. It was a dark sky campsite, and we got there, we got pitched up after a bit of messing about, which I'll come back to. But yeah, we got pitched up. I pitched up with my festival tent, shall we call it. I went out to camping. I didn't want to spend a lot of money on an initial setup because I wasn't sure if I was going to like it or not. And I think if I'd have spent the night in that little festival tent, I reckon my opinion of camping could have been a lot different. Luckily, I think Mick must have said to Kev, look, bring a spare tent, because I've got a feeling Sean he's not really equipped for it. And thankfully, Kev did bring a spare tent. I think it was a Jackal 2. But anyway, yeah, I got my little festival tent set up. Got laid in, got pumped up my mattress. The mattress only just fit really well. It was touching either side, and I laid down in it. And yeah, even though I didn't know much about camping, it didn't feel right. So I ended up pitching up the Jackal 2 of Kev's spare tent, which turned out to be a game changer, I do believe, because it was spot on. Really did like, that tent. I forget what time of year, what month we were in when we went to Robin Hood's Bay, to Farside Farm. But it was warm. It was nice and warm. I don't think I was cold through the night. It was just nice. It was just nice. I didn't sleep well because it was new to me. I think that was the problem. I don't think it was the fact I wasn't cold or anything, but I just couldn't sleep because I think it was a strange atmosphere for me, and I wasn't used to it. But I did enjoy it. On the morning after, me and Kev, we had a walk down to Robin Hood's Bay. We watched the sunrise. It was fantastic. Throughout this review, I will insert clips, video clips of you know, certain parts of the camps. Yeah, and it's a shame because I did really enjoy that camp, but I mean, we had a good laugh the night before, sat around just drinking, but unfortunately the owners, the proprietors, bit weird. When we got there, there were me, Kevin and Mick all in the same car. It didn't seem to be a problem. I know they didn't like groups of lads, but I think Kev did ring up before we went, and he did explain, you know, we've all booked separately, we've all got separate tents, we won't be causing any hassle, and they were fine about it. And then she said, well, you're supposed to be down there, but somebody had already parked there, so she was rumming and harding where to put us. I mean, surely you'd just think, well, they're in the wrong place, so move them, but she didn't. And Mick was like, well, I mean, there was plenty of space. It wasn't like it was packed. Mick was like, well, we'll go anyway, we're not bothered. You know, she's very indecisive about where to put us. I mean, I don't really know what it mattered. But eventually she put us practically at the entrance to the campsite. We got set up, like I said, and we were chatting, and then it must have been, well, it must have been 10 o'clock or past. Lovely, loads of people sat outside the tents. We were sat outside, we were having a drink, we were having a laugh. And this woman came out shouting and roping, keep the noise down, it's past 10 o'clock, and she was really having a go. I don't know if I think she was looking towards our direction. It was Kevin said, I think she's talking to us. So yeah, I mean, were we loud? I don't know. Maybe we were. Maybe we were louder than expected. I don't know. Because rather than coming directly up to us and saying, "What lads, you know, you're a little bit loud, keep it down," she just bawled it across the field. So we weren't really sure if it was us, but funny because pretty much after that telling off, everybody just sank into the tent. So I think everybody was free and stiff of her. All we could do was laugh. But anyway, it is what it is. Kind of puts you off though, if, you know, thinking about going back. I don't know if I'd want to go back there, simply because of that. Anyway, that's by the by. Facility wise, I would say it was the worst one of the 5 camps we did last year. There were toilet facilities, there was a shower facility, but it was very rustic, it was very ramshackle, to the point that on the night I needed the toilet, obviously it was pitch black. I got my head torch, and I went into the toilet cubicle and all I could see was spiders. Loads of spiders, and one of my biggest fears. I had the quickest wee possible and then got out of there. That's not the camp's fault. I know that, but it's because it was basically just a wooden hut. The toilets were just a wooden hut. The shower was just a wooden hut, and a big sink in between the 2 toilets. Don't get me wrong, there were water facilities, there were drinking water facilities, there were a sink, you know, out in the field with washing facilities. Compared to the rest of the camps, it wasn't a patch. Camp number 2 was Hollim Airfield Campsite at Wivensey, and that were a really good camp. One of my favourites actually. I think as soon as we got there, we were greeted by a friendly woman who explained to us what to do, where to park and stuff like that. Well, she didn't really tell us where to, but just the field was pretty empty. We could park anywhere we wanted, but she was friendly. You know, once you get that vibe straight from the off, and you know it's going to be good. We got set up right at the other end of the field, out of the way of anybody. Me, Kev and Mick, all next to each other. It was lovely and warm through the daytime. We got inundated with some beetles or something, but you know, that one not really. We had nice McDonald's. We got sat down, we got chatting, we had a few drinks, and then rolled in some thunder and some rain and some wind. We had it all. It did not spoil the night, but obviously with it being raining, we had to retire to his tents. Again, I slept better than I did at the previous camp, but again, not brilliant. And again, I don't think that wasn't due to cold. I don't think. I might have been a little bit chilly maybe at some point, but I think it was more again to do with being a weird setting to me, something different. But yeah, that was the first time I used my Coyote Free tent, and yeah, I really enjoyed that. The facilities were excellent. There was kind of a shop, I think it was a shop, but it didn't seem to be open when we were there. Whether it was just, I don't know, not out of season as such, because it wasn't late in the year when we went, but I don't think it certainly wasn't in school holidays, was it? But anyway, but the facilities, the toilets, the showers, very clean, enclosed in like this porta cabin unit, you know, so no big gathering of spiders. They even had a fridge freezer, laundrette. So you know, the facilities were excellent. Really enjoyed that. That were at Wivensey, Hollim Airfield Campsite. I would definitely go back there again, absolutely. Camp number 3 was my solo camp. This one I purely did because I was picking our Sam, Josh and kids up and bringing them home from their holiday at Thornwick Bay. They'd made their own way there, but they asked if I'd bring them back, which I'm falling back here, which I gladly did. And I thought, why not do a little bit of a solo camp, and I stayed at Quarry Hill Campsite, which were in Flockton, near Filey. Again, another good campsite, really good campsite, friendly, decent facilities. They even had like a burger van, and in the morning they did bacon sandwiches, well, all kinds of sandwiches and drinks, so that was nice. They did provide certain things like barbecues and fire pits and stuff. I didn't bother with that because I got pitched up. I had a brew, and then I went to meet our Sam, Josh and kids at Thornwick Bay Campsite, and I pretty much spent, you know, the rest of the, it was knocking on when by the time I got there and got set up, it was roughly about 4:30 maybe. So by the time I'd had a cuppa and got things sorted, it was nigh on 5:30 before I got to Thornwick Bay to meet up with them. And then I just spent the evening with those, and it was quite late when I got out, because I could not. You weren't allowed after a certain time. Can't remember what time it was, but after a certain time, it might have been 8 o'clock. You weren't allowed to drive through the campsite back to your pitch, purely for safety reasons, and I respect that. So what I had to do was I had to basically park at the bottom of the campsite, just a little car park area, and then walk up. Like I say, it was late, and by the time I got to my tent, I crashed out. Slept not. I think that was probably up to that point the best that I've slept, purely because I'd had a busy day. But yet again, the facilities brilliant. Not quite as good as Holling or the two that I'm going to come to. They did have shower and toilet facilities. Again, the toilet was kind of a shed, which again, I didn't like to look around too much in the middle of the night when I went for a wee. Yeah, but the shower block, again, it was just like a porter cabin. It was on a slight tilt. It did feel like it could fall over at any time. But even so, it's still a nice shower, nice and warm. The only thing with that one, it is only a small gripe. The shower facilities were closed and locked at a certain time at night, and reopened again at about 8 o'clock the following morning. Which I found out because when I went to get a shower, I was up quite early. When I went to get a shower, it was locked and there was a sign. I'm like, oh, bugger. So I had to wait for somebody to open it. I don't know why it's just not open all night. And then I know not many people are going to get a shower at that time of night or that early morning, but I did. Once I get up, I like to freshen up pretty much straight away. Excuse me. So yeah, that was a nice site. It is on an hill. There is certain flat sections. Luckily, I got on like a flat section where they put me, but to be honest, it overlooked into the distance towards the coast, the sea, and it was lovely. I would go back if I wanted to. It's not one I'd be in a hurry to get back to, and I don't mean that to sound bad, because it wasn't bad. But there is other sites I would prefer to go back to first. Next was Sykeside campsite in Penrith, Cumbria, the Lake District. Unfortunately, the timing was really bad on this, and we ended up going in the middle of Storm Amy. Granted, we should have probably put it off, but like big kids, me and Mick, we were excited, we wanted to go. Unfortunately, it won't be that bad. Russ came with us on that one, but he'd gone the night before, and he did give the heads up. He says it's an absolute washout. But again, persevered, and we thought, well, it might settle down, it might be all right. And to start with, once we got there, again, the staff were brilliant, really friendly, really helpful. And that they suggested we put us tents on this raised bit of grass, which me and Mick did. We camped up. Russ had he didn't even bother pitching up. He ended up renting this what they call it, I forget what we call it now, but it was like a little room, basically, like a little B&B type thing. He didn't risk pitching up. Basically, we pitched up, and yeah, it wasn't fun. It was windy, It kept, you know, raining, as you can imagine, in the storm. And it was hard work getting pitched up, and yeah, I mean, within 10 minutes of us pottering around us tent, it was muddy as hell. But we persevered. We went to, we booked in at the pub, which is just, it's on the campsite technically. We booked in for the meal, me, Russ and Mick. We had a lovely meal, fantastic, really nice. And when we finished, we went back down, we were going to the tents. Russ had his torch, and I remember him saying, something don't look right. And unfortunately, he was right. Mick's tent had collapsed, pretty much collapsed. Now, could have been the wind was strong, but bear in mind we both had the same tents, we both pitched right next to each other, and mine had not one fault at that point. And Mick's one of his poles had snapped and the other one was really bent. I also believe somebody's fallen into that, probably by accident. I'm not saying they've done it deliberately, but I think perhaps, I know there were, well, I don't want to put blame on anybody, so I'll not mention anything, because if anybody sees it, they'll put two and two together, that were us. There were other people there around, fairly close to us, and I don't know, they could have been maybe taking a shortcut by going on this raised bit of grass where there's tents. What if it were dark? They might have tripped over one of the guy lines maybe and fallen into the tent. Like I say, probably not on purpose, not maliciously. But to me, it didn't make sense for his to go like that and mine to be perfectly normal. We'll never know. We'll never know. But anyway, that was a stinker, because obviously there was no way Mick could camp in that. It put me off sleeping in mine, if I'm honest. Because I thought to myself, well, if the wind has done that to Mick's, then surely it's going to do it to mine. And the last thing I want in the middle of the night is to be, you know, having my tent collapsing on me. So I went up to the pub and I asked if they've got any accommodation at the pub. I don't know if they did have, but they did say, well, go down to reception, we'll get somebody to come out here and they'll sort it out. Now when they did, when we went down to reception, came to me and they said, what we have got is like a log cabin, a wooden pod, heated floor and electric. I'm like, that sounds good. And I think it was only 20 quid extra for night. And I'm like, yeah, definitely take that. So me and Mick spent the night in a pod, in a wooden pod, nice and cosy. And it was bloody lovely, I tell you. Crikey. I mean, that floor was red hot. It was lovely. Yeah, I had a decent night's sleep. Don't think Mick did, because I'm not snoring. But sorry, Mick. But yeah, I know Mick was very, very miffed about. I mean, obviously it's a lot of money to lose in just, you know, like that. In the time it took for us to go to the pub, have a meal, and then come back, his tent were ruined. So yeah, I know he was a bit miffed, and yeah, I mean, it's got to have ruined it, really, for us. So you know, it's a site we would like to go back to, because I imagine in decent condition. I mean, the scenery around it was fantastic, absolutely lovely, and the facilities, yeah, and those some of the, well, pretty much one of the best out of these 5 camps that we did last year. Really warm, nice showers, decent toilets, clean, sink facilities for washing pots, even for washing animals, pets or whatever. Dryers, washers, there were all sorts. It was really, really nicely designed place, that. And a shop, like I said, reception, stroke shop, they had everything in there. So yeah, really impressed with that. But unfortunately, we went in a storm, which we shouldn't have done. But like I say, hopefully we'll get back to that place, or at least somewhere near, because it is a lovely place. The scenery around it is just jaw-dropping. And then lastly, camp number 5, which was the end of October. Me, Mick and Russ again. Castle Howard Lakeside Holiday Park near York. Castle Howard is a stately home, which we didn't really get time to have a look around. But the campsite, well, like I said, it's more of an holiday park, so there's a lot of chalets and caravan type lodges, and obviously they've got pitches for hard standing for loads of motorhomes there, and then obviously the field for the tents and stuff, and really enjoyed that one. Was it the best? It probably was the best one that we'd been to. I'll get to why it not spoiled it, but I'll get to the negative part of it in a minute. But the grounds are really good. The facilities, again, were excellent. Probably just as good as Sykeside campsite. It had a little shop at reception. Didn't stock as much as Sykeside at Penrith, but still enough, you know, that you could get through the basics. The toilet and shower block, again, very clean, very warm, and open all through the night. And this is the thing, because when throughout the night I struggled with the cold, and I know that is probably because of my equipment, or as it was then. I've got no equipment since then, but yeah, I just could not get warm. I mean, it dropped down to about, it must have been about 3, 4, 5 degrees. I mean, I remember putting my hand on to get out of the tent in the middle of the night, putting my hand on the floor of the tent, and it was absolutely freezing. So there was a lot of cold coming up from my mattress, and I mean, I had a few layers on, and my sleeping bag, my mattress, a foil like lining under me mattress, but I was frozen, and it kept me awake a lot through the night. Every time I woke up, I thought, oh, crikey, I'm cold, and I kept putting layers on. I ended up with 4 layers in the end, 4 layers plus my sleeping bag and a cover, a blanket. So I just could not get warm, and what happened was I got to a point, it was about 4:30 in the morning, and I couldn't get back to sleep. I thought, you know what, I'm gonna go get a shower and warm up, because I'm cold to the bone. That's what I did. But, you know, like I said, at Quarry Hill campsite I couldn't have done that, because it didn't open while 8 o'clock or whatever. But at Castle Howard, luckily I was able to. And the highlight of that camp was Russ bringing his telescope. We had perfectly clear skies. It is a dark sky area, and just amazing. Honestly, I could see the band, the galaxy of like a band. Oh, you know, like you see, I don't know, you see on telly. I could see it in real life. I saw a comet, lemon comet, wasn't it? That were passing over. Saturn, it even zoomed in on Saturn. Alright, we're only like a little white blob you could see the rings. Unbelievable. And that is what made it yeah, I would say that was the best camp. Despite me being absolutely freezing through the night, I do think it was the best camp. We had, Russ had his log burner, and wow, that was, well, one on fire, it was lovely, lovely and warm, but as soon as it died down a bit, it got really cold. So yeah, really enjoyed it, and that's the 5 camps. That's my review of last year's 5 camps, 2025, my first ever 5 camps, and they're all good in their own right. You know, despite some negatives across the board, the positives far outweighed them. So, all in all, you know, fantastic. And I do love camping. I love for me, even if I were on my own, it's just a tranquility and just being able to just relax. Yeah, what do you do when you're camping? You know, other than, I mean, all right, you might sit there watching YouTube, but that's not what it's about. It's just laying there, relaxing, having a nice drink, listening to the sounds. I heard some sounds I don't think I'd ever heard before. Animals, birds, owls. They're just constant. Them owls, they never shut up. But yeah, really enjoying it, and got lots more planned this year. Not just with Mick and the Man Camp lads. Man Camp. We are camping in just over a week's time, really, and we are going to Burrs Manor Farm in Buxton, and we are doing that because I'll get back to it in a second. And it's called the Great Tommy Sleep Out. We're doing this for charity. Mick has set up like his charity entry, if you like. There are no pointers all doing them. There's 4 of us going. There's me, Mick, Russ and Danny is joining us this time, Danny Broadbent. But it's for this, if it'll zoom in. It's the Great Tommy Sleep Out. And it's for like British veterans, you know, servicemen, veterans, who unfortunately are having to sleep rough, you know. So, and he's doing really well at the moment. They set himself the target of £150. We're currently at £325 raised. So it's a great cause. And granted, we're not going to be sleeping that rough. We've still got some luxuries, but it's the principle that we're doing it. If you would like to donate, and any donation is really appreciated, I'll put a link in the description to this page. Like I say, it will say Mick Gent. Because like I said, there was no point at all just setting on. Mick just set that up for us all. So, you know, we are doing it for that. And as part of the charity pack, we do get some beanie hats, so we'll be wearing them. And Mick has even bought a flag. We're going to fly the Great Tommy Sleep Out flag as well while we're there. We're just doing it one night. You know, the first camp of 2026. Like I say, it's for a great cause. You know, if you have got just a little bit of spare change, please do donate. So yeah, we're looking forward to that. Like I say, I've got some better gear, so hopefully, even if it does drop quite cold, I should be all right. And I've got my camp bed. I'm making sure I've got the tent that fits a camp bed, so I can get off the floor. So, but yeah, it'll be a good laugh. We're going to vlog it, obviously, and have a few laughs. I mean, how is it? It's impossible not to laugh with likes of Mick, Russ Brown, and Danny Broadbent. They're all crackers, all 3 of them. So I'm saying it's fun. Anyway, that's enough for now, and hopefully you'll join me in a couple of weeks when I put out the video for us camp at Bears Manor Farm in Buxton. So hopefully you'll join us then, and hopefully it will all go nicely without any itches. But until then, thank you for watching, everybody, and I'll see you on the next video.